Hello, so today I will be doing a tutorial on how to take apart a Keeb TKL from HYTE. As you can see, I got a modified one right in front of me, so I thought if anyone's interested in taking apart their Keeb to do some modification like what I've done with mine, hopefully this tutorial will be helpful for you. Some tools that you might want to have handy before we get started. As always, when you're working with a Keeb, you'll want some sort of keycap puller and switch puller. That will be helpful for the first step. Always have a knife available, so in case you need to open stuff. I usually like to keep a couple tweezers around. I like a curved one as well as a straight one, just in case I need to get into things, such as pulling apart the ribbon cable that we'll be doing later. As well as only one screwdriver is only needed, Phillips number 1. So I did a really good job with the design of the Keeb to be able to be taken apart with just a single screwdriver. Prior, if you want to be taking apart the plastic case on the outside, you'll probably need one of these plastic prior to not do too much damage, even though we'll be doing some ripping apart of the plastic case that's glued together. That's an optional step, but I'll be doing that in the tutorial as well later. As always, that's probably a good idea to be working off of a non-slip surface so you don't lose the small parts that we'll be taking apart. I do have my mat available to keep track of the little screws, but I usually don't like to pull out this blue mat if I don't need to, so I'm just going to keep it this side so I can keep my screws straight. So let's get to it. So the first step, unwrap your Keeb. Pretty straightforward. I like to just kind of take off the plastic carefully here. Comes right off. Okay, and here's the Keeb, and there's a cardboard thing. And yeah, it's always interesting to me how the Keeb smells so good. I don't know what kind of perfume HYTE used, but there is actually a nice smell to it. And the bag comes off pretty easily like so, and you just kind of take the Keeb out. And you can put the box away now. We don't need most of anything else in there. So here's a stock Keeb, black on clear. Not going to plug it in, looks fine. Here it is. 3 layers, linear switches, pretty much standard fare. Just kind of rip off the rollers, don't need those. And then the first step, for those who are just kind of doing the keycap and switch swap, it's pretty straightforward. Just rip it all out with your puller. Alright, so that's about it. Ripping off all the keys caps from the keyboard, and just kind of put the keycaps away somewhere. We won't need it for a while while we're modifying the board. Really nice double shot PBTs, pretty standard stuff. If you like to go with something else that's not just plain black, HYTE does make quite a few pretty ones, but they're all pretty expensive. Personally, on my circuit Keeb over there, I used a see-through one because I just want to go with the whole transparent theme that HYTE has for the Keeb. Otherwise, just these plain double shot PBTs here from HYTE, that's just black. And what you see below here is their fluffy purple lavender, something like that, lavender linear switches. Feels pretty good, really quiet and smooth. But I'll be taking it out. If you want to start modifying, taking the keyboard apart a little bit further, you'll have to remove these switches. So here I go. Okay, so we got the last switch out at this point, so we can see that these switches are your nice 5-pin stuff. Just really nice, clear, transparent switches. If you do swap them out to take full advantage of the lighting that's on the Keeb, might be a good idea to go with some transparent switches. As well as you can see with the PCB that you have a north-facing. These are the north-facing LEDs. I personally prefer the south-facing ones, but this is what we get. Other than that, so put the Keeb away again, and time to put the switches away. We won't need it for a while. And yeah, if you're going to definitely swap away from something like a tactile switch, like what I prefer, just put these linears away, just in case you at some point want to switch over back to a linear. I'll just put it in a bag somewhere safe, or get one of those fancy switch holders or something. But I use a block. Good enough. Okay, now the fun stuff. So what we have is a Keeb, and there's a top plate over here, plus some frame and a plastic, a very thick acrylic case on the outside. The fun stuff begins now, where we will start actually taking the keyboard apart. So first we go to the back, and there's a few things that we need to remove here. So you see where all the plastic, the rubber feet on this Keeb, that's where all the hidden screws are actually hidden. The first pair is pretty straightforward under the magnetic stands that you can swap out for the higher ones. They come with the low one standard, so you can just put those off to the side. They pull off easily. So the first 4 screws are actually behind the 2 feet, the stand. So you just kind of go in with your number 1 Phillips and pull it out. Sometimes the screw does get caught in the big magnet next to the screw itself, but it seems like I'm doing pretty good today, so I'm not getting any screw caught by the magnet. But yeah, it's coming out real nice. And the last one is actually hidden under the serial number for your keyboard. Just kind of poke through it, and out comes the screw. Now the next 3 is actually a little bit trickier. They're hidden underneath the bottom feet, the rubber feet, and you can see a little bit more zoomed in that you can kind of guess, you can see where the screws actually are. If you look through the clear body, which this is really helpful. For example, this left one, you just have to peel off the bottom feet just a little bit. Don't pull the whole thing off, because then you'll have to use one of the replacement one that's in your replacement feet that's in your box. But otherwise it pulls off pretty easy, and it reveals a screw underneath the feet. There's 3 of these on the bottom. Kind of just got to rip them off and put your screwdriver and pull out the screws. So back goes the feet, and the middle one is all the way in the middle, so you have to rip off a little bit more, but just kind of do it. Good tape, so not a big deal. Stays on the feet. Once again, if you do accidentally rip off too much and it doesn't stay sticky anymore, there are 3 replacement feet, bottom feet in your key box if you do need to have a replacement for it. But here's the last one, so number 7. So there are a total of 7 of these screws, and yeah, so here are the 3 hidden ones under the bottom feet that are glued down pretty well, and that's it. So be very careful at this point when you flip it over. Don't make the mistake that I did when I first took apart my first one to make the circuit. There is a very fragile, I would say kind of fragile, ribbon cable on the bottom of this. So as you lift off the top plate, but you can just kind of lift it up like that, and be very, very careful here, as you see that you have a ribbon cable that is attached onto the PCB and the bottom array of LEDs, and you want to come in with, take your pick. I'm gonna go with my straight tweezers over here. Pop out the holder, the black plastic holder here, and that releases the ribbon cable, and you just kind of pull it out, and now you can safely remove the Keeb from its case, the acrylic case portion. As you can see, there is a nice pad here, a rubber mat. Underneath you see this is the array that make pretty when it's lit because of these nice little LEDs. We'll come back to this, so we'll kind of put the plastic acrylic case to the side for now. We're going to keep taking the case apart from the PCB itself. So once you get to this phase, this is the actual Keeb itself. I would actually just be safe and remove the rest of the ribbons, which are over here. There's 3 that controls the buttons and the daughter board, and along with the roller. So there's total of 3 ribbon cable to the top right at this point. And I would just go in carefully and pop out the, just like what we did earlier, pop the 3 of them out. 1 and number 2. And number 3. It's a little bit stubborn, but there we go. So 3 more ribbon cables to be taken out, and now your Keeb is kind of free. The next thing that you need to do is remove the bottom frame over here. There's quite a few screws, and once again, still your Phillips number 1, and just go around the edge of the frame, the bottom frame, and you can remove that. I actually like to paint this particular piece as well. Right now it's just kind of this gray metallic, but this is one of the items that I like to customize because it does show through on your keyboard when you do have the clear acrylic case, and it's just kind of a boring drab gray right now. Pretty easy, just a metallic thing that you just kind of sand down a little bit and then put a nice primer over it, and you can color anything you want. But right now it's just kind of gray, which is fine, but yeah, more screws. Here we go. Okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are a total of 12 screws holding the frame down. If you do want to paint the frame, at this point you will have to remove the roller from the frame, and this is attached with these 3 screws on the roller over here. It also has the USB-C daughter board on there as well. So it's just simply attached with these 3 screws over here, and you can remove it off the frame like so. So especially like what I'm planning to do with this Keeb is to paint the metal frame here, the gray metal frame, and yeah, you have to take off this roller piece here. And it's kind of an interesting mechanism. After you remove the 3 screws, you just pull out and the whole thing comes out. So it's kind of attached on with in and out. It's kind of get caught over there. But yeah, so that is the roller mechanism. Pretty nifty. And just kind of leave the cable, the ribbon cable there. You don't need to mess with that too much. And now we have our frame out, and you can see that there is some gaskets over here on the side. Pretty nice dampening, really well dampened board because of all these little small touches from HYTE. Yeah, so other than that, let's keep taking this keyboard apart. Put that frame aside, and now we're still upside down at this point. We come to the extra set of buttons here. So this is a second daughter board that Keeb has. Just 2 screws, pretty straightforward. Phillips ones once again. I'm glad that HYTE made the decision to not mess with hex and Phillips, just all sorts of mess in some other Keeb that I've taken apart before. So pretty straightforward. Just a second daughter board over here that controls the extra media key, the 5 media keys. So Here's their low profile clickies that I don't recommend switching out because they are hot soldered on. But just a couple of screws there, pretty straightforward, and we remove that. Next, we get to pop out the 5 media keys. So just kind of put your finger underneath and you can pop it right out pretty easily. So there's 5 buttons here, and you just kind of go through and pop them out. And now we can flip it over and we can take apart the plastic frame that was kind of holding everything down. It's a black plastic piece. I like to paint this part as well. It's scratch it up a little bit and then it'll take paint. And as well as your it's a metal frame of some sort. It's not aluminum, my bad. It's just your standard steel plate. Definitely be careful when you're prepping this piece. Because of the lubing process for the stabilizers, there is quite a bit of oil on this piece. When I was first painting this, I discovered that the paint didn't stick onto the lube that HYTE has generously applied onto their stabilizers. So be sure to definitely wash this piece with mild soap and water to get rid of any of the excess stabilizer lube so that you can paint well. There's also these 2 little foam pieces on between the space bar, so definitely remove that before painting. So otherwise just a few more layers of dampening for the PCB that you don't really need to mess with. There's more on the back, but for most intent and purposes, for my modifications, I don't tend to mess with this stack around the PCB that much. But if you do want to swap out the stabilizers, you will have to remove the foam on the back that's kind of taped down a little bit, but pretty straightforward stuff. But otherwise, that's it. In terms of taking apart the paintable part, which I really care about, that is the metal plate, as well as the plastic top frame, as well as the bottom metal frame here, the gray one. So these are the 3 main pieces that I like to take outside and paint prep and spray down. Other than that, here comes the trickiest part, which is taking apart this acrylic board that HYTE really didn't design for users to really take apart. But if you really want to get to the 3 layers for doing some layered vinyling like I do with my modifications, you will have to go through this part. This case is actually glued down, so if you don't feel comfortable with especially the snapping sound that you're going to be hearing as I'm ripping apart the CA glue that's holding this outer case part, you can definitely do a lot of decorations already on top of the clear acrylic case that's nice and thick. So do this portion on your own at your own risk, because this is part of, you can't unless you want to mess with CA glue again and glue it all back together, you probably want to kind of skip this part because it does get kind of destructive a little bit. So the place I like to start to take apart the acrylic case is actually right here in the center. This is probably the weakest point. It's right above the HYTE logo that's on the case itself, that's printed onto the middle acrylic layer. Serves as the diffuser for the light module. So this portion I find is the weakest portion in terms of getting your plastic prior in. So this is just your typical trim piece. As you can see, as soon as you insert it in, the glue isn't super strong over here, so it just kind of pops right out. And then there is actually more glue as you go around the edge over here, so this is where you're going to start hearing some of that CA glue start cracking apart when you're sliding your your prior through a little bit. Just be really gentle, and if you really have to, this is where the knife kind of helps. Just go in there with your sharp blade and kind of just help the CA glue rip apart a little bit here. Be careful not to scratch the case itself too much as you're doing that, so just make sure you just be really careful as you're popping off the glue itself. And we come to our most difficult part. Yeah, I find that the glue itself is very, very thick on the side edges over here. So just make sure that, you know, don't go too crazy with the amount of force that you apply. Help this process along a little bit first by scribing it very gently with a blade so that the CA glue is kind of coerced into coming apart a little bit easier for you. But otherwise, just kind of be gentle here with taking apart CA glue so that you don't crack your acrylic case itself. So just kind of use a sharp blade to kind of help it along to take off the glue, and otherwise it just comes right off. Like any sort of slightly glued on plastic, there are little tabs to kind of help the case go back even if you don't want to mess with CA glue again. But otherwise, just pretty straightforward plastic trimmed stuff where you just kind of finesse your way around the glue and get the glue off. And yeah, here we go. Yeah, these the top and bottom edges tends to be a little bit easier in terms of the amount of glue they applied. The thickest glue is definitely the two edges left and right, so just be a little bit aware that you might have to help it along a little bit with some fine blade work over here like what I'm doing. Just be careful not to go too crazy, just go slow and steady so that you don't mar up the acrylic case too much. So you just have to be gentle, and then the top part of the case come off. It's a really flimsy piece without the glue and the support of the bottom and the middle layer. But otherwise, this is kind of the point of no return until we put the key back together. But this is how you take apart the three pieces. Once you pry off the top, the three pieces of the case do come apart pretty straightforward at that point. Just note that the two edges to the left and the right have the thickest amount of glue, and that's where a sharp blade will really help with the process of removal. So at this point, teardown of the Keeb has been completed. So at this point, I'm gonna pause the video and go and paint the three pieces that I said I was gonna paint, which is the top plate as well as the frame around that, along with the bottom frame for the Keeb. That's the whole teardown.